Editor Ryan Saby, who, Ryan, for some reason I thought you worked at the Mail last hour, entirely on me. I know you work for The Sun. Nevertheless, let's head into The Observer to kick things off, because, and this has obviously been published before the US found their missing airmen in southern Iran, but the headline, 48 hours before all hell will rain down, was Trump's warning.
That's right. We've got this big message from Donald Trump overnight about what his tactics could be over the next few days. But one of the things that this story does focus on is the sort of practicalities of world economies and how they're going to recover, how they can repair in the coming weeks, months, or even years. That is going to, that is the impact of what is happening out in the Middle East. And it seems that Yvette Cooper, the Foreign Secretary, will try and gather, her counterparts from around the world to actually work out a game plan of getting oil through the Strait of Hormuz. But I think the trouble is, this may not happen while hostilities and conflict is taking place. This is all going to happen once there is some kind of resolution. But the impact for people, British people here domestically, pump prices are going up, energy prices, mortgage rates are going up. There are so many consequences of what is happening. And it may be that all these countries are trying to come together to try and get something passed at the United Nations to make sure there is that shipping is safeguarded. But the impact that is happening now and the long-lasting effects are immense.
Let's look inside, Zoe, the Telegraph, because they've got a striking image there of a young girl holding what looks like a mock-up of a Kalashnikov and saluting there. Alongside this headline, Iran's energy plants bombed ahead of President's unleashing hell deadline. They might be winning in their eyes, but there are ramifications for basically destroying a country's civilian infrastructure.
Yeah, absolutely. Not only that the infrastructure will eventually have to be rebuilt with whatever happens to Iran, but that you are bombing the country with millions of citizens there who need to live and exist in a safe country. If you do that, what country will be created from the remnants? If you destroy their energy infrastructure, what happens to those people? And at what point, actually, does the international community say, no, that is beyond a reasonable defensive action? That becomes a war crime. So absolutely, what we are seeing is, the Iranian people under attack, very, very concerned about their energy infrastructure, their supplies, their food, and the Iranian regime becoming incredibly entrenched. And, in the last piece we were talking about, the way Iran has managed to completely take over the Strait of Hormuz, it's managed to completely cut it off in a way that wasn't anticipated, really, by world leaders. We didn't think there would be that much control. This is clearly not a campaign, the US and Israeli campaign in Iran. This is clearly not going the way they expected it to go. And I think it's going to be very, very difficult, even if Israel is successful in sending Iran back to the Stone Ages, to build a nation that is aligned with Israel's future interests.
Yes, especially as Donald Trump started this by urging everyday Iranians to rise up once more. If their lives are being made really hard as a result, that makes that difficult. Let's not forget, Ryan, there is a war much closer to home. And if we look in the Sunday Times, they talk about Ukraine's fears that Russia's 24-hour drone attacks are exploiting defences that have been diverted to the Gulf. There are wider ramifications of all of this.
Yeah, that's right. A really good piece here by Christina Lamb. And one thing that she talks about is sort of 24 hours of continuous drones, the Russians using 1,000 drones over such a short period of time, and actually just wearing out the Ukrainian people. I think previously that the Russians were using drone attacks during the night into the early hours, but now those exhausted people in Ukraine are having to sort of, be awake literally for the rest of the day and actually trying to defend themselves. And then that's not without trying to actually attack the Russian drones themselves.
Yeah.
And also the impact that it's having on the economy, because if the people can't go out and the young people can't go to school, it's having so many knock-on impact and consequences.
Let's have a look at a couple of stories a bit closer to home. Front page of the Mail on Sunday, Zoe, has the headline, Drill, Ed, Drill. This is all to do with the North Sea and what seems like a possible U-turn, another one by the Labour government in terms of giving those licences for North Sea gas and oil.
Yeah, so there's this split reported split in the Cabinet between Ed Miliband, who of course is the Energy Secretary, and Chancellor Rachel Reeves. about potentially releasing the oil and gas in British waters, so lifting this ban that was put in by this Labour government on drilling on the North Sea. Obviously, Ed Miliband is very keen to go further and faster with renewables. He's keen to keep that ban. Rachel Reeves, keeping an eye on growth, thinking about actually what can we do to kind of ease some of the cost of living pressures for voters. There's been some research here that the Mail is reporting on that found that half of all voters thinks Ed Miliband should drill baby drills, that's drilling in the North Sea. I mean, this is being touted by the opposition, particularly Kemi Badenoch and Nigel Farage, as the way to deal with the impending further cost of living crisis that's going to come as a result of the Strait of Hormuz being closed and oil and gas supplies being disrupted. But there are many reasons why this actually won't help, not least that this is a mature basin which doesn't actually have as much oil and gas as we might want. It takes a long time to get those operations up and running. And of course, it's all sold on international global markets anyway. Quite. So it's not like we can just take that oil and gas and use it for ourselves.
There'd be tax receipts, though, wouldn't there? That's
their argument. But it is a populist solution to a very difficult and complex problem. And obviously, in this time, people are very worried. They want easy answers. But I think there is a reason why actually the Prime Minister and the Energy Secretary are saying, look, this shows that our reliance on oil and gas is what has got us into this mess in the first place. The best thing we can do for builds in the future and energy security is pushing with renewables.
Ryan, I wonder if in your own paper, The Sun, this is a headline that shows a popular solution to a tricky problem. Sainsbury's giving its staff stab vests. Tell us more.
Yeah, a really concerning story, and not the sort of situation you sign up to when you go to work in a supermarket. I think the situation has got so bad for people who work in supermarkets that it looks like Sainsbury's are going to issue these stab vests for their security staff. And we've seen a situation this week with the looting in Clapham in South London. But you do hear the sort of the general noise of how difficult and testing it is for people who work in the retail industry. And there's a line here from the British Retail Consortium that says for too many people, violence and abuse are now part of the shopping experience. It's terrible.
It really is terrible. And we'll have to gloss over that story about Italians using so much English. Its language risks dying out. That really isn't molto bene. But you both are. Zoe, Ryan, thank you very much indeed. More in a moment.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News journalist?